November 8, 1942, Sidi Bouzid, Tunisia, North Africa. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain as Oberreiter Wilhelm Schmidt crouched behind a stone wall. His Karabiner 98K rifle gripped tightly in both hands. The bolt felt familiar in his palm after 3 years of service. Load one round. Fire. Pull back the bolt handle. Eject the spent casing. Push forward, load the next round, aim, fire again. This was the rhythm of war he knew, the rhythm that had carried German infantry across Poland, France, and deep into Russia. 5 rounds in the internal magazine, fired one at a time, each requiring manual cycling of the bolt. Across the dusty field, American infantrymen advanced in a skirmish line. Schmidt had been told these Americans were inexperienced, soft, unprepared for real combat. Their equipment was supposedly inferior, their training inadequate. What happened in the next 60 seconds would prove those assessments catastrophically wrong. The Americans opened fire. The sound was unlike anything Schmidt had experienced. Not the familiar crack, pause, crack of bolt-action rifles, but a sustained roar of semi-automatic fire that didn't stop. 8 rounds fired as quickly as the trigger could be pulled. No pausing to work a bolt, no interruption in fire, just continuous aimed shots. While Schmidt managed to fire perhaps 3 rounds, the American soldier opposite him had already emptied his entire 8-round clip and was reloading. This was the M1 Garand rifle, and it was about to systematically demolish German infantry doctrine. The psychological impact on German soldiers trained to believe in the superiority of Germanic arms and tactics would prove as consequential as the weapon's actual firepower. This wasn't just a story of technological advantage, but of complete tactical transformation forced upon an entire military establishment. The genesis of German confidence lay in military tradition stretching back centuries. The Karabiner 98K, adopted on June 21, 1935, represented the pinnacle of bolt-action rifle development. Accurate out to 550 YD with iron sights, reliable in mud and frozen conditions, simple enough for conscripts to maintain, the KR-98K embodied everything a military rifle should be according to German thinking. It fired the powerful 7.92 by 57mm Mauser cartridge, capable of penetrating substantial cover. In trained hands, the KR-98K had conquered most of Europe. German military doctrine emphasized aimed fire from prepared positions. Infantry training stressed the importance of each round being carefully placed. A skilled German soldier could fire approximately 15 aimed rounds per minute from his KR-98K, working the bolt with practiced efficiency. This seemed adequate when facing Polish, French, and British troops armed with similar bolt-action weapons. The British Lee Enfield with its 10-round magazine could fire somewhat faster, but German officers considered this a trade-off against accuracy. When American forces entered major combat operations in North Africa in November 1942 during Operation Torch, German intelligence had prepared assessments of American equipment. These reports painted a picture of industrial abundance but military inexperience. American infantry, the assessments claimed, relied too heavily on firepower and too little on tactical skill. The M1 Garand appeared in these reports as a semi-automatic rifle of interest, but not particular concern. German analysts noted its 8-round capacity and self-loading mechanism, but pointed out it was heavier than the KR-98K at approximately 9.5 lb, compared to 8.2 lb. The general assessment concluded that while the M1 offered higher volume of fire, it sacrificed accuracy and reliability inherent in simpler bolt-action mechanisms. Yet American forces had already been using the M1 Garand in combat since December 8, 1941, when Japanese forces invaded the Philippines the morning after Pearl Harbor. M1 rifles shipped between August and November 1941 had equipped the U.S. Army's Philippine Division and elite Philippine scouts. These soldiers used their Garands effectively enough that Japanese troops reportedly believed they faced machine gun fire. General Douglas MacArthur cabled in February 1942, praising the rifle's performance in the dust and dirt of foxhole fighting. By the time German forces faced Americans in North Africa, the M1 Garand had proven itself through nearly a year of brutal jungle combat. The reality encountered on North African plains shattered German assumptions with brutal efficiency. Schmidt's unit established defensive positions expecting to stop American advances with disciplined aimed fire. When Americans attacked, the volume of return fire was massive. Not machine gun fire, which Germans expected and knew how to handle, but rifle fire, continuous sustained rifle fire. German soldiers would fire, work the bolt, Acquire the target again. Fire. Perhaps 15 rounds per minute from trained soldiers. But each American was firing 30 to 40 rounds per minute, hitting their targets. Germans could not suppress them. Every time they raised their heads to fire, multiple rounds came back immediately. The mathematics were undeniable. In a 2-minute engagement, a German soldier with a Kar 98K might fire 30 aimed rounds. An American with an M1 Garand could fire 80 rounds in the same period. More critically, the German soldier had to break his sight picture, work the bolt, reacquire his target, and fire. The American simply pulled the trigger 8 times in rapid succession, his aim barely disturbed by the rifle's modest recoil. The M1 Garand's semi-automatic operation relied on a gas-operated system, as a round-fired propellant gases were diverted through a port in the barrel into a cylinder below. This gas drove a piston that cycled the action, ejecting the spent cartridge and chambering a new round. The entire process took a fraction of a second. The rifle's action remained closed between shots, maintaining barrel-to-sight alignment. Accuracy did not suffer despite rapid fire. Testing at Springfield Armory demonstrated the M1 could maintain 4-minute of angle groups, 4 in of spread at 100 yards. Many production rifles performed significantly better. General George S. Patton, in a letter dated January 26, 1945, to Major General Levin H. Campbell, Jr., Chief of Ordnance, wrote, "In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised." This was not hyperbole. Patton understood the rifle had fundamentally changed infantry combat. A soldier armed with an M1 Garand possessed firepower equivalent to multiple riflemen with bolt-action weapons without sacrificing accuracy, reliability, or effective range. By mid-1943, the United States Army was equipping entire divisions with M1 Garands. During World War II, from 1937 through 1945, approximately 40,000 to 40,082 M1 rifles were manufactured. Springfield Armory in Massachusetts produced 3,526 922 rifles, while Winchester Repeating Arms in Connecticut manufactured 513,980. Production reached such levels that by D-Day in June 1944, virtually every American rifleman carried an M1 Garand. This represented unprecedented achievement. An entire military force numbering in the millions armed with semi-automatic rifles while opponents still carried bolt-action weapons. The M1 Garand's technical specifications told only part of the story. The rifle fired the .30-06 Springfield cartridge, a powerful round that had served American forces since 1906. The cartridge propelled a 150-grain bullet at approximately 2,800 ft-pers, delivering substantial energy at extended ranges. The rifle fed from an 8-round en-bloc clip, a metal clip inserted directly into the rifle's action. When the last round fired, the clip automatically ejected with a distinctive metallic ping. While some feared this sound might alert enemies, combat veterans universally reported that battle noise made the ping inaudible beyond a few yards. The rifle's reliability became legendary. Exposed to North African dust, Italian mud, Northern European cold, and later Korean winter conditions, the M1 functioned with minimal maintenance. Field stripping required no tools. The operating rod and bolt could be removed for cleaning in minutes, then reassembled quickly. German observers consistently noted this reliability with respect and frustration. German defensive doctrine relied heavily on machine guns providing suppressive fire, while riflemen engaged targets with careful aimed shots. The MG-34 and later MG-42 machine guns were excellent weapons, but they required crews, ammunition bearers, and were vulnerable to artillery. The M1 Garand changed this calculus. American infantry squads, each rifleman armed with a Garand, could generate firepower approaching that of German machine gun teams. More critically, this firepower was distributed across the entire squad. Suppressing an American squad required suppressing 8 or 9 individually armed soldiers. The Italian campaign from September 1943 onward provided German forces extensive experience fighting American troops. From Salerno landings through brutal fighting toward Rome, German infantry found themselves consistently outshot by American riflemen. A March 1944 report from the 94th Infantry Division, captured after Rome fell, noted that encounters with American infantry typically resulted in Germans being pinned down by rifle fire, even when Germans held superior positions. The report recommended increased machine gun allocation to compensate for American advantage in infantry firepower. The German military establishment recognized the problem and attempted solutions. The GE-41, introduced in 1941, was Germany's first attempt at a semi-automatic infantry rifle. Two competing designs emerged. The G41M from Mauser and G41W from Walter. Both proved deeply flawed. German specifications mandated no gas port be drilled in the barrel, fearing premature wear. This forced designers to use complex gas trap systems at the muzzle. These systems proved unreliable, fouling easily and adding unnecessary weight. The rifles were complicated to manufacture and maintain. Production remained limited, with estimates ranging from 6,000 to 15,000 total units produced before the design was abandoned. German designers studied captured Soviet SVT-40 rifles and acknowledged that the gas port system they had rejected actually worked. The result was the Ge-43, introduced in October 1943. This weapon incorporated a simpler gas system and detachable 10-round magazine. It was lighter and more reliable than the G41 series. Production totaled approximately 42,713 rifles by war's end, with about 53,435 fitted with telescopic sights for designated marksmen. The G43 was capable, appreciated by soldiers who received it. However, it arrived too late and in too few numbers. For every 50 Kar 98K rifles produced, only one G43 was manufactured. The vast majority of German infantry continued carrying bolt-action rifles until war's end. Even soldiers who received the G43 found it was not equivalent to the M1 Garand. The German rifle, while effective, was more complicated, more difficult to maintain in field conditions, and suffered from parts availability issues as German industry came under increasing strain. The fundamental problem was that Germany had entered war without an effective semi-automatic infantry rifle and never caught up. The impact of the M1 Garand extended beyond simple firepower. The rifle changed how American infantry fought. Training emphasized rapid target acquisition and continuous fire. American infantry tactics assumed every rifleman could put substantial fire on target quickly. Squads advanced by fire and maneuver, with half the squad laying down covering fire, while the other half moved. The volume of fire from M1 Garands made this tactic devastatingly effective. Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, the 352nd Infantry Division defended fortified positions on the bluffs. This full-strength 12,020-man division occupied what should have been nearly impregnable positions with excellent fields of fire, reinforced concrete emplacements, and interlocking machine gun positions. When Americans reached the base of the bluffs, their fire was overwhelming. Every man had a semi-automatic rifle and used it continuously. German defenders could not maintain aimed fire because incoming rounds were too numerous. Machine gun crews were targeted by dozens of rifles simultaneously. The Normandy fighting in June and July 1944 provided German infantry extensive exposure to American firepower. In confined hedge spaces where combat occurred at ranges under 100 YD, the M1 Garand's rapid fire proved decisive. Traditional German tactics of a few riflemen covering a position while others maneuvered no longer worked. Covering fire from M1 Garands was too heavy, too sustained, forcing German troops to keep their heads down. Statistical analysis conducted by the U.S. Army's Historical Division after the war, examining after-action reports and casualty data, revealed that American infantry squads inflicted casualties at rates significantly higher than expected based on their numbers. While many factors contributed, including artillery, air superiority, and logistics, the consistent advantage in infantry firefights pointed clearly to the M1 Garand's role. American infantrymen could expect to win engagements even when outnumbered, provided they had reasonable cover and adequate ammunition. The German Army solution came in the form of the Sturm 44, the world's first true assault rifle. Firing an intermediate cartridge, the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurz from a 30-round magazine in either semi-automatic or fully automatic mode. The St. G44 represented revolutionary thinking. Approximately 425 977 were produced mostly in 1944 and 1945. But like the G43, the St. G44 arrived too late and in insufficient numbers. Most German infantry never saw one. Those who did often lacked adequate ammunition as Germany's industrial capacity crumbled. The M1 Garand's technical evolution began long before World War II. John Cantius Garand, born January 1, 1888 in St. Remy, Quebec, Canada, moved to the United States with his family in 1899. He began working at Springfield Armory on November 4, 1919, devoting nearly 2 decades to perfecting his semi-automatic rifle design. Early prototypes used different operating systems and calibers. The U.S. Army originally favored a 276 caliber cartridge offering better ballistics than 3006, but General Douglas MacArthur, then Army Chief of Staff, insisted on retaining 3006 to utilize existing ammunition stocks and maintain compatibility with machine guns. This decision made in 1932 delayed adoption, but ultimately proved sound. Garand continued refining his design through the early 1930s. The rifle underwent extensive testing at Aberdeen Proving Ground and Springfield Armory. Problems were identified and corrected. The gas system was simplified from an early gas trap design to a simpler gas port system. The trigger mechanism was refined. The stock design was improved for better ergonomics. On January 9, 1936, the rifle was officially adopted as the U.S. rifle caliber 30 M1. Initial production was slow, with only a few thousand rifles manufactured in 1937 and 1938. Production accelerated as war loomed, reaching 600 rifles per day by January 1941. The M1 Garand served American forces through World War II, the Korean War, and into early Vietnam years. It was not officially replaced as the standard service rifle until the M14 was adopted in 1957, designated as replacement on March 26, 1958, with first deliveries to troops beginning July 1959. Full transition across all units took until 1961. Even then, M1 Garands remained in use with Reserve and National Guard units into the 1970s. The M1 Garand's psychological impact on German soldiers manifested in profound ways. The weapon represented technological superiority that contradicted everything they had been taught about American capabilities. German soldiers had been conditioned by propaganda to believe in Germanic technological and tactical superiority. When individual German infantrymen, properly equipped and well-trained, found themselves unable to win firefights against individual American infantrymen, the myth of superiority collapsed. After World War II, detailed studies of small unit actions consistently showed American infantry inflicting disproportionate casualties in firefights. The rifle each soldier carried made measurable difference in combat effectiveness. American casualties from German rifle fire were proportionally lower, another indicator of the M1's effectiveness. German attempts to compensate through superior tactics and positioning worked only partially. Eventually, the sheer volume of aimed fire from American infantry would find targets, suppress defensive positions, and enable American maneuver elements to close with and destroy German positions. The M1 Garand's legacy extends beyond World War II into modern firearms development. The principle it demonstrated that infantry benefit from self-loading rifles increasing their rate of fire, without sacrificing accuracy, became foundational to post-war weapon development. Every modern infantry rifle from the AK-47 to the M16 to current assault rifles owes conceptual debt to the M1 Garand. It proved that semi-automatic operation was not just feasible for military rifles, but essential. The story of German infantry encountering American forces armed with M1 Garands represents a moment when technological advantage met traditional military excellence and demonstrated that superior technology matters profoundly. German infantry training, tactical doctrine, and individual soldier quality were excellent by objective measures. But excellence with inferior weapons produces inferior results. The M1 Garand gave American infantrymen a tool allowing them to fight effectively even when outnumbered, to win firefights even facing veteran troops, and to advance against fortified positions that should have been nearly impregnable. From the Philippines to North Africa, from Sicily to Normandy, from the Hedros to the Rhine, the M1 Garand served faithfully and effectively. It earned its reputation as one of the finest military rifles ever designed, and Patton's famous praise was fully justified. German soldiers learned through hard experience on battlefields across multiple theaters that American infantry firepower represented a fundamental tactical challenge their bolt-action rifles could not overcome. The M1 Garand demonstrated that warfare had entered a new era. The days of massed infantry armed with bolt-action rifles were over. Semi-automatic rifles were the future, and the M1 Garand made that clear to militaries worldwide. German infantry, brave and well-trained as they were, fought with equipment that put them at disadvantage in the most fundamental infantry task, shooting the enemy before the enemy shoots you. The mathematics remained constant throughout the war. In the time required for a German soldier to fire 3 carefully aimed shots from his Kar 98K, an American soldier with his M1 Garand could fire 8. When both soldiers were equally trained and skilled, the American would hit 2 to 3 times as many targets. In squad-level engagements, this difference became overwhelming. The M1 Garand gave American infantry numerical superiority and firepower, even when German forces outnumbered them in actual soldiers. German military theorists studying their defeats in the post-war period consistently identified the firepower disparity as critical. Former General Dienza trooper Hassan Mantoffel, who commanded the 5th Panzer Army during the Battle of the Bulge beginning December 16, 1944, wrote in post-war memoirs that American infantry firepower exceeded German infantry firepower even when German forces held defensive positions.